Welcome in. It is Friday evening, so you know what that means? I'm here with my guy, Jeb. How are you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm very happy that it's Friday. It's got an exciting weekend coming up.
Oh, man.
Who couldn't be thrilled about this big weekend in the Queen City?
Big weekend in the Queen City. Panthers are not home. You know, I always start there first.
Yep.
Panthers are not home.
They
do have a big game against the Patriots.
Yep.
It's the Mike Vrabel revenge game.
I was going to say Drake May revenge game.
Well, no, I say Mike Vrabel because
Because he caught a touch on the Super Bowl. We saw.
go.
Yeah, you blew Eugene's mind. With,
he forgot
with
about that.
Yeah.
I'm just I just got facts, random facts in my head. But a big weekend because Charlotte FC is back at the bank. And, of course, we had to bring back on Kacey White, MLS analyst. She had such a good time with us last week. So, I mean, of course, we had to have her back. Thank you for joining us, Kacey.
The best in the biz.
Of course. I'm glad to be back. Maybe we should just make this, a weekly thing. I kind of like it.
I love it.
Let's do it. Let's start here. Okay, so lost last week. Charlotte FC obviously is trying to extend that home game win streak. I believe it's match win streak. I believe it's 12 games at this point. I feel like this is a trap game against Montreal.
Honestly, it can be, especially when you come off a loss after a 10-game win streak. It's one of those ones as a coaching staff that you are going, we got to get the mentality right leading up into this game. Not just because they came off a loss, because there's extra motivation to right the ship a little bit and not have a slide, but also it's just second nature and it's unconscious at times that when there's a team that's at the bottom of the standings, sometimes you think it's just going to happen for you because you're the more talented team, because you've had a better season. That couldn't be further from the truth. So Charlotte is going to have to come in very intentional in this game because Montreal is just looking for anything that they can kind of grasp that's positive to end their year.
But they're not playing bad. Like I believe they're like 14th in the Eastern Conference right now. They're not playing bad. They're playing hard. Their head coach is acknowledging that they're playing hard. They're just not finishing games well. I mean, they're already looking to 2026 at this point. But any X factors? Who do you have your eye on for Montreal?
Well, I want to comment on what you said. They aren't playing bad. Everything between the 18s is really good. They are really good in possession, and that's something that they've been good at all year. But I spoke to Marco Donadell earlier today, and he's like, but you got to win at some point. So he said he's getting tired of that. He likes it, but he wants results as well. So that's something that they're definitely going to be looking. Maybe it won't be as pretty or they won't have as many chances, but they want to be more efficient in the final third and more stingy defensively in their box. But Owusu is the player to watch. He's their central forward. He's their goal scorer. He is a physical specimen up top. He makes wonderful runs and behind the back line, and he can hold up the ball in possession. So he's really the X factor for Montreal.
Hey, Kacey, Jeb Goldman here. Owusu has really been the
Wait, why is your voice so deep?
That's my TV voice.
It's a little deep this week. I have a little rasp, a little.
That was me last week. I was like, Nick Servant called me out on live television.
I'm sorry.
Like a tomato over here.
I'm sorry, Jeb.
No. But Prince Owusu, he really has been their X factor. Let's talk about our X factor, and that's been Idan Toklamati. And we talked about it last week. Charlotte FC unable to really get anything going wide. That was a tough game. I mean, I watched those penalties. I don't necessarily know how I feel about those calls. I was watching. You guys were great on the call, by the way. Really enjoyed it. But I tuned in. I was like, oh, are you kidding me? I tuned in for the second penalty, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. So let's talk about our X factor. How does Idan Toklamati, as a young striker, kind of rebound from a performance like that? How do we get him back on the score sheet?
I think the first thing to really point out is that anyone that was scoring like he was, especially coming off a hat trick, they're not going to replicate 1, 2, and 3 goals every game. And that doesn't mean that he's playing bad or he's not performing, but that type of expectation of production is just unattainable. And what was really hard the last game, because Charlotte wasn't getting what they needed in the wide spaces and pulling out the back line of New York City, it really condensed the space for Idan Toklamati in the center of the field. And one of the big things as well, Jeb, is when that first penalty went against Charlotte and they scored that, they could just sit in. And so not only was it already compact, now they have a 1-0 goal. And I agree with you. I think it was a bit of a soft penalty, if I'm being honest, that first one. You talk about the second one, but the first one I'm with you on for sure. That made it even more difficult to occupy that space in front of the back line for Idon Toklamati. So I think it's one of those things, hey, it's one of these games. It happens. It shouldn't knock his confidence. They just need to keep getting him the ball, get him on the ball early in the game, get that confidence going. I think we'll see him again.
Absolutely, and I think you bring up a good point that, he was scoring. I mean, he was red hot. I mean, he was literally the hottest striker in the history of the club. And I mean, how many soccer teams can say that? Another X factor that I think a lot of Charlotte FC fans have questions about is Pep Biel. I think the last report that I read was Dean Smith commenting, was it tendinitis? It seems like he might be carrying some other injuries. What do we expect to see from him, if anything, tomorrow night?
That's what's so hard about returning from injury, because then something else can kind of start hurting and you can compensate and you get back into the run of play, and the demands on the body are so high that it can be difficult. I think we expect a slow progression with Pep Biel just because Charlotte is in a place where they're in the playoffs. And so you want to get him back, but you don't want to set him back even further where he can't play valuable minutes down the line. I expect to see him. I expect to see a contribution, but I just don't know if we're going to see an increased minutes just based on that report and what we saw last week as well.
That brings up a good question. I was just talking to Nick about this. If you look at Charlotte's remaining games, they have DC and Philadelphia. DC, very winnable game. Philadelphia, that could have real playoff implications. Home against Montreal should be a win. Do you think Dean, having had some injury issues this season, is thinking about maybe not playing the best lineup for this Montreal and potentially DC game to try to keep everybody healthy for the playoffs? I mean, there's a chance they have the best seed in club history. They're certainly going in with, I think, the best team in club history. What do you think is going through the mind of the manager right now as we approach these final 3 games?
This is a good point, because the job of the manager the entire year, but especially down the stretch, is managing the entire performance environment. And that can be about how you're clicking as a unit. It can be managing minutes and injuries or staying away from injuries. All those pieces go into play. I don't necessarily see him doing these massive changes with the lineups right now, especially after a loss, because you want to get back into the form you were in that was getting results. And as long as there's players that don't have nagging injuries, I don't think we're going to see a lot of change necessarily. Maybe we'll see a limit of minutes, especially if the game can start quickly and Charlotte gets on top. Then you can start to pull players off and maybe manage those minutes down the line. But I think the performance and your partnerships are way more important at this point in his mind, and I think for most managers that would be in his position.
I do got to ask off that, I get managing injuries, but did last week's loss, I know this home matchup, is great timing, but do you lose a little bit of confidence? I know they had to shake their confidence. You're on a roll and then you lose and then you come back home, and obviously that helps, but I'm sure their confidence got to be down.
I don't know. I kind of see it a little bit differently. I think individual players might have had a performance they weren't happy with, and we won't really get into their brains necessarily. So I'm sure there are a couple that maybe it shook their confidence a little bit. But there's a couple things at play here, and we mentioned it quickly last week, but we didn't harp on it. I hate to say this, but you weren't going to probably win every single game the rest of the season. It was almost impossible to do that. And so I have been talking about it for a couple weeks, that if you're going to lose a game, lose it in regular season. You've clinched playoffs, get little things nice and tight, reorganize, and then make that run in the playoffs. So I think if I'm a player or if I'm a coach, member of the coaching staff, I'm saying, hey, this was bound to happen. We're not perfect. Let's tighten some things up. It was a small field. We got some calls against us. That's out of our control, but we're playing well. This is just a blip on the radar. So I think it's how you structure that viewpoint when you look at it.
Absolutely. And I want to start playing a game of hypotheticals now, because I'm looking at the schedule. I love my hypotheticals. So Philadelphia, they've been red hot. Ty Baribo, I think, is just absolutely sensational to watch. If you haven't watched him, I highly recommend, because he really does it. They've been good. They have a gauntlet of a fountain. Yes, they played DC United, who has been, by all standards, awful. I think Christian Benteke is fantastic. They've had a disappointing season. But after that, they play New York City FC, who is red hot right now. Obviously, Wednesday's game notwithstanding, if Lionel Messi did that every game, Miami would be undefeated. Like that is what they have. So we're not gonna bash them too hard for that. Big win against us. Philly plays them next week. Philly right now has 60 points. We have 53 on the same amount of games. If Philly gets to that, if Philly wins this weekend, we're pretty much out. We're not going to lock up that top spot. But they might, if they lose, it's up there. So what are the odds that DC can pull up the upset and make this like razor thin Eastern Conference even tighter going into the final 3 games of the season?
It's not out of the question, because they have a defensive structure that works. The problem with DC is that Benteke is not going to score every game either, right, when they play in attacking transition. So it's really hard when you're withstanding a lot of that attack that's coming at you. But they are defensively structured. But if he has a moment or two where he can put something away for them, it's not out of the question. Do I think Philadelphia most likely would win? Yes. But how fun would that be for the Charlotte FC fans, for you guys, if it comes down to that last game? That would be pretty amazing for fans across the league and definitely here as well.
Well, and I know our Nick Carboni, who, you know, he's out for a little while, but I know he's aiming to come back for Decision Day. He's our main sports thing, so I know he would love if we were talking razor thin margins. I know he'd be all about it. The next thing I want to, you talked about it, and I'm really glad you brought it up earlier. It was very unlikely Charlotte FC was going to win every game all the way up until the championship. You know, in the NFL and honestly every league that has a playoff structure, you almost don't want to go into the playoffs too hot because it's impossible to maintain. So in your professional opinion, having covered this league for a long time, having covered this team for a long time, do you think it's actually maybe better for their long-term playoff goals to have dropped a game away at a tough stadium, and could that galvanize them for these final 4 matches and into the playoffs?
I do. This is going to sound a bit crazy, but if I was managing this team, I'd be like kind of smiling to the side that there was a little bit of this like resistance that the team had to face. And you want I think they would have liked it if it was 1 week later maybe and gotten the record. Like, I understand that, like having the record by yourself, not sharing it. That's maybe a little bit harsh. You know, that hurts for sure, for the team, for the coaches, for fans, for everyone surrounding the club. But when you're looking at form and you have a long-term vision of what you want to do and what Dean Smith has said, I want trophies. I want trophies here, right? There's not a trophy. Yes, there's a record book if there would have been 10 wins, but you're still in it with 9. You're just tied. And so he wants the big thing. And I think you have to meet resistance to see what kind of resilience your team has. They've learned something by going to New York City, playing on Yankee Stadium in case they see them again. What would that look like? Who's hosting? You just don't know. So there's things to learn from that and to use that to push you forward.
Kacey White, MLS analyst. Look, we got high hopes. Home matchup at the bank. So yeah, we're going to check in with you next week. I know we were flying high last week, but we definitely are flying high this week. So Kacey, thank you for your time. You going to be back next week? I kind of just threw it out there that you're going to be here, but I got to ask, are you going to be back here next week?
I'll be here, but I'll probably be in some other hotel somewhere. This time
That's fine. We'll take it.
The absolute expert.
I did want to say congrats to your Carolina Panthers. I felt like I should bring that up and say, you know, I was making fun that you probably wouldn't be able to convert me, but I'm happy for you. You got to win. I'm excited for you guys.
I appreciate that.
You don't know what to say.
You know, I'm
You're the first person
right
to
now.
ever congratulate him because he hasn't seen a Panthers win in like 15 years. So
stop.
he's literally speechless.
You know what? Here's the thing. You know, our Panthers have been struggling, but I'm hopeful now. We look better. I don't know how we scored 30 points, but we did. I don't know how we shut the Falcons out, but we did.
Panthers, Charlotte FC, getting some shutouts. That's what I like to see.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm cool with that. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm
actually
speechless.
did it with a lot of sincerity, but I wanted to get a chuckle out of Jeb as well. And so
Ask Jeb who his
Mission
favorite.
accomplished.
Ask Jeb real quick who his favorite team is.
49ers, we're 3-0. Bay Area. If only the Quakes could do the same thing, but it's all right. At least we're fun to watch for the first time since I was like 12.
Barely,
So it's
barely
little
3-0.
things.
Barely 3-0.
Barely 3-0 is 3-0. If Quakes need to go 4-0.
Bring up the Cowboys because that's where I'm from, so we won't.
Oh.
Yeah, that's not. That's 1-2. 1-2.
Get well soon, Cowboys. 1-2 Panthers.
Yeah, listen, we're all
record,
speaking
same
the
record.
same neck of the woods.
Kacey, thank you for your time.
Of course. Thanks for having me, guys.
Always a good time with Kacey. All right, so you don't have to make a big decision this weekend like last week. Last week, the match started at 12.
Yeah, no, it's 7:30.
7:30. It's still going to be some big games at play, but you kind of...
Right, it's and it's tough, and this is my qualm being a Charlotte FC fan and an MLS fan, and they're trying to move the schedule to be more in line with the European schedule, which really begins in August and ends in June, late May.
Okay.
And that's the MLS is trying to do that. Right now, it kind of begins opposite and runs over the summer.
Yeah.
And they want it to be more in line with the European schedule so that transfers and all that kind of stuff, same breaks, international breaks. But when this season comes out, it's like Saturday night, what are you going to watch? College football or MLS? And I love the MLS. And what I generally do is I watch college football up until 10:30 and then watch the MLS games and then flip to Charlotte FC whenever they're playing. But if this happened, like during the summer, it's amazing. When there's no other sports there, you can just watch MLS 360, which is the MLS version of Red Zone. If people who have MLS Season Pass haven't tried it, you have to. It's like Red Zone on steroids.
Oh, wow.
There's 10 games going on, constant goals, the personalities. So we're talking Sasa Kljestan, Dax McCarty, like such fantastic personalities that do it. They play games. They have a competition where they try to predict who's I love it. So I really enjoy that side of things. But with college football, I got to watch my Mizzou Tigers play.
They're playing well.
Right. And we're playing great. So I got to watch that. And, I'm not going to, tomorrow's Oregon versus Penn State.
Oh, yeah.
And Bama versus Georgia. That's
Bama, Georgia week.
That's appointment television.
But here's the thing, too, about football. The reason why we crave football is because the season is shorter.
It's so short. I was telling Colin last night, I feel like last college football season came and went so fast. I mean, I've done a really good job of doing nothing on Saturdays and just sitting on my couch.
Yeah.
Last Saturday, I started at noon.
Yeah.
And I stopped because I was watching Cal San Diego State. I stopped watching football at 1 a.m. That's 13 hours of college football.
I'm there with you. I was done at after the Florida game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, which
that's like 12 hours of football.
All nonsense. And I love it. I love it.
No, I mean, I can't. And I'm doing the same thing tomorrow because it's going to be raining.
Which is perfect because there's not really much. Well, I mean, Charlotte FC, but.
Well, yeah, and it's that's the one thing I do want to say for fans is, I was talking with our Brittany Van Voorhees just before this during the weather show. I'd say there's a very reasonable expectation there may be some delays. And if there aren't delays, it might be just a very, very rainy game. So bring your poncho. Should be a great game. Charlotte FC is a team that plays well on a fast surface because they have those great wide threats that it should be an interesting one.